Welcome
to the Kinetic Life Podcast, brought to you by Kinetic Renew.
This podcast is dedicated to helping you find your way to your dreams, your goals, and your success. We'll be fueling that with key information on topics like health, science, tech, and lifestyle, coated with a few laughs along the way.
In this episode, a motivational speaker's journey through life with no limbs. The power of nature. Why elephants don't get cancer more often. Mistletoe. It's not just for kissing. Plus a few helpful success tips and tricks to help you on your journey. And now we begin. Here's Michael Chalavutis and Dr. Mark Hertzberg.
Yo. Welcome back to the Kinetic Life Podcast, brought to you by Kinetic Life. As always, I'm your host, Mike Chalavutis, and I'm with my counterpart, the one Dr. Mark Hertzberg.
Greetings and felicitations.
As always, we like to start our podcast with the quote of the day. Today's quote brought to you by Unknown, but it's a quote that I truly do like. The key to success is to focus on your goals, not your obstacles.
Well, that is an excellent quote, except if the unknown who did it had succeeded, we'd know who he is. So there is that. But yes, absolutely. You always have obstacles if you have goals. If you concentrate too much on the obstacles, that's kind of like what we discussed. If you say, I can't, you can't.
Very true. If you focus on what's ahead, that's the difficult aspect of things. You're less likely to begin the first step of your journey to anywhere.
Right. Now, if you ignore your obstacles, you will trip. So the idea is you keep your concentration on your goals, and when you see an obstacle, you just do what you have to do to avoid it, get around it, get over it, but don't bog down thinking about it and worrying about it and saying, I can't now. This is going to stop me.
Yeah, and we could bring that back to even evolution. As without stressors, you pretty much there's no improvement, there's no strengthening. I mean, I jump from even working out, the stress of working out helps you build muscles. The stress of studying.
Put a muscle in space with no stress and it withers.
Yeah.
And it's worse for bone.
I think there was actually even a study where they did some kind of terrarium where they built like an entire ecosystem in like a dome almost, and they found that certain trees and plants that they grew taller, but they weren't able to sustain themselves because they're without any wind. Their bark was really never strengthened up. So after a certain height, they grew taller, but then weren't able to actually support their weight once they got past a certain point.
Okay, so they evolved to include the stress, and you remove one stress, they grew too much, but the other systems didn't catch up. They may not have even been able to pump the water and nutrients up high enough, forgetting about could they sustain their weight. So if you evolve to a stress, you got to keep that right amount of stress.
Yeah, and this beyond nature, just general life, whether it's, wanting for a promotion, to starting your own business. There's an author, motivational speaker. His name is Nick Vujicic, and you could look him up. I believe he is what they call quadriplegic. He doesn't have any arms or legs. He was born that way. It's a congenital disease. And as a motivational speaker, one of the things he always says is, what's your excuse?
You say that to me, and I think of someone with 4 limbs that no longer work, usually spinal injury. If it's high enough up, it'll be all 4, otherwise paraplegic. Not having limbs should have its own word.
You are right. It's quadriplegic is affected by or relating to paralysis of 4 limbs.
We need a new word for lacking 4 limbs.
Let's go to the tape.
In any case, maybe we can look that up, or someone can contact us with the answer to this question. But moving on, he obviously had more than a few obstacles. he was missing the tools most people use to get over and around obstacles, and I guess he just decided if he's going to give in to obstacles, that's it. We're dead in the water.
Yeah.
So he went the other way and said, the heck with obstacles. I'm making myself some goals, and I'm going to figure out a way to go there.
Yeah, I mean, he had a thankfully a loving family, but from what I read, but he was not without struggle initially and became very depressed. But eventually, he looked past his obstacles. So going back to our poor use of terminology, the actual term is not quadriplegic, it is quadra-amelia. Amelia is the medical term for congenital absence of partial absence of one or more limbs at birth.
And quadra is the word I stuck on because it's cool.
4.
Which is what he yells when he plays golf.
Yes.
With his mouth, as
he's
you
a
said.
motivational speaker, plays golf, surfs, paint, author. God bless the man. I mean, he, realized he's a family. He realized that his obstacles and his disability was not going to hold him back from living a very prosperous, enjoyable life. Which it's one of those things where the average person doesn't realize how somewhat trivial sometimes most of their issues are. And we all have our problems. I mean, but a lot of people lack the ability to take a step back and be like, actually not that bad.
I think most people, when it comes to looking for obstacles and weighing what got in your way and what got in my way and blah, 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 and making excuses, come closer to Mel Brooks' 2,000-Year-Old Man. The definition of comedy is a lion eats you. The definition of tragedy is there's a paper cut, but it's mine.
We're sponsored by KINETIQ Renew. KINETIQ Renew is a 4-ounce shot of all natural ingredients that deliver some amazing benefits, like improved mental clarity, long and short-term focus, and improved memory and cognition. Plus, KINETIQ Renew improves mood with the added benefits of anti-stress and anti-anxiety. KINETIQ Renew provides antioxidants and neuroprotection, and all this with no caffeine, no artificial flavors, sweeteners, or colors, and it's only 5 calories. KINETIQ Renew is what you drink to arrive focused and alert, and you won't get that caffeine or sugar crash. Go to kineticlife.com and use promo code POD1 for a special 30% discount. POD and the number 1, POD1. The 30% off is for a limited time only, so log on now to save. Kineticlife.com. That's KINETIQ life.com now. Do it now. Log on now. Give it a try. You're going to love it.
Getting back to and I bet you that Nick Vujicic can pronounce his name, which is not easy right off the bat. But you know what he said? It kind of reminds me of something you mentioned that Ben Affleck said.
Oh, from his speech in 2013.
Yeah, because if you break down, he said, what was it? You work harder than you think you possibly can. You can't hold grudges. It's hard, but you can't hold grudges. And it doesn't matter how you get knocked down in life because that's going to happen. All that matters is you get up. Because when your obstacles have something to do with other people, it's not just the obstacle that you're saying, oh, I can't do it, there's this. There's the anger. Some people also, if the obstacle's on people, they get angry at luck, they get angry at God, they get angry at whatever, and that's worse.
It's someone else's fault, not my own.
Now you start focusing on the grudge and not on what you got to do.
Yeah, and that goes in line just making excuses, and they kind of lose sight of where they're trying to go because they can't get there now because it's someone else's fault. They always say leave the past in the past. If someone did you wrong, holding a grudge is just going to make your life more miserable, not theirs. Put it aside, move on, learn from your lesson, learn from working with that individual. And life is going to knock you down. It's not all sunshine and rainbows out there. But you stay focused, you keep your eye on the prize, focus on your goals, and like I said, when you get knocked down, you get back up. You will eventually achieve your goals and your dreams and whatever you set out to do, whether it's lose weight, put on muscle, get a promotion, start your own business, start a podcast, whatever it may be. It's not going to be easy all the time, but as long as you focus on what the end result is, and every now and then pick yourself back up. I believe it was, they said...
dust yourself off.
Dust yourself off. As they say, I think it was a warrior, while he'll fall down, always make sure he falls on his back, because if he can look up, he could get up.
He wasn't a turtle. I'm guaranteeing you that.
Hey, nothing wrong with the turtles.
He may have had a hard shell, but he was no turtle. When it comes to grudges, and we were talking about that, and remembering your goal, because that's how you have to control your memory. You have to focus your memory on what you're doing and not on... And it's great if you could have a memory like an elephant to go chase after your goals.
We will get to that in a minute.
The elephant in the room will be discussed
shortly. But one more, I guess aside related to focus on your goals. I always say in a car, the front windshield is very large, but the rear view mirror is very small. You have to have a big vision of what it is going forward and very little view of what happened in the past.
Okay, now I'm really going to hit with sports trivia. You know what Satchel Paige said? I believe I got the right person who said it.
What?
Going, never look behind you. You don't know what's catching up.
Oh, I've seen that happen way too many times.
Just look ahead and chase what you're chasing.
Success is stumbling from failure to failure with no loss of enthusiasm. Winston Churchill. Optimism is the faith that leads to achievement. Nothing can be done without hope and confidence. Helen Keller. No one changes the world who isn't obsessed. Billie Jean King.
It's time for that elephant.
Now it's time for science and news. And as I described, today's category is learning from nature. And as I mentioned in plenty of times beforehand, I find it very interesting when we learn from what evolution has done over thousands of years, whether it's billions of years, whether it's some unique antibiotic or using, which I think we discussed once before, seashells for to make spaceship hulls based off of the structure, new drugs, whether it be cancer drugs and whatever it may be. The secrets of nature hold a lot of power. So today we'll start with, as Mark said, the elephant in the room, which is a recent study that looked on why elephants don't get cancer more often. And usually it's a larger the animal is, the shorter the lifespan?
No, the longer it lives and the bigger it is.
The longer it is.
Basically, cells are pretty much on average the same size in a cockroach and a whale. So there are just more of them. So the bigger something is, the more cells have to divide, and the more cells have to keep dividing to replace. The longer it lives, the more chances they get to divide. Every time a cell divides is a chance for a genetic mistake, and cancer is one of the results of the wrong kind of genetic mistake. So you expect, and you'll see this as a trend as you look at short-lived little animals, and then as you go up, either longer life little animals or bigger animals. In both things, cancer goes up. The longer something's alive, the more likely to get cancer. So things that live quickly just don't have it that often.
Yeah.
And also bigger things. And yet, by these, if you follow the graphs, elephants should have a real problem, and yet they don't.
Them and whales, actually, they mentioned in the article. And I mentioned Peto's paradox, they call it, after Richard Peto, who discovered that per cell carcinogenesis, which is the formation of cancer, rates were not consistent between species. In this situation, they wanted to figure out why not only the percentage compared to humans, they said roughly about only 5% of elephants actually succumb to cancer, where over 25% of humans experience it.
Experience it or succumb to it? And that's with medical intervention.
Succumb to it. As little as 5% of elephants ultimately succumb to cancer compared to 25% of humans. That's actually higher than enough for humans. But I guess even you live long enough.
Right, and one of the things, because I used to have this, man-made this, man-made that. People are dying more of cancer because of that. I go, yeah, because when the lifespan changed from 51 years to 93 years, the longer you live, the more likely it's going to be cancer that finally gets you.
Mm-hmm. The more chances for mutations, and a lot of times those people that died at 51 years ago might have had the beginning of something that were led to cancer, but something else killed them before that the cancer ever got to a point.
And there's a second thing. When you're older, even the same rate of cells becoming cancerous, the immune system might not be as good at hunting them down and stopping them. So a lot goes into it. But back to our pachyderm friends, the question then became, why are they so good against cancer? And what it came down to is we have one gene that in charge of I forget the details of the system that hunts down these mistakes.
We have a couple, but one of the main ones is the P53, what they call oncogene.
And if something goes wrong with it, or it's being very generic, it's got to go after everything. Mm-hmm. So it's easy for things to go wrong. The elephant has 100 such genes. So if something goes wrong with one of them, doesn't notice. They also can specialize better at going after certain things. So the elephant has evolved, and the writers of the articles, they were going after that graph, they're going, it makes no sense, and actually it makes complete and total sense. For the same reason, if you look at a house, its structure doesn't have to be that strong. If you look at a skyscraper, because if it didn't have an incredibly well-engineered structure, it couldn't exist. The elephant, once you pass a certain size, cancer would prevent, it would just, you'd go extinct. If you didn't, as you passed a certain size, develop ways to fight and suppress cancer, you wouldn't get past that size.
The pathway they're talking about is the P53 MDM2, and MDM2 actually stops P53 from, I guess, suppresses P53, so it's not always on. Now, they were saying that elephants have, multiple forms of the P53 protein. I guess isoforms might be alternative splicing playing here. So they have a way of evading being suppressed by MDM2. But with that being said, if they can avoid being suppressed, that could also lead to too much cell death, no? Or I guess it wouldn't matter, because if you're not sure if it's cancer or not, you're just killing it off, it would more likely to prevent cancer in the long run if you're not sure anyway.
Well, they'd have to go back and look at the details of the mechanism, but my knee-jerk reaction would be no. Because if it were yes, then you would have hoped that a decent research would have said, but they die, they have an extra incidence of some other death. It may be worthwhile compared to cancer, but it's not, they didn't mention any other, balancing act that it causes a little bit more of something else.
But bringing it back to humans, then, what they're learning from this is that these multiple forms of p53, they're learning from it that this might be a form of cancer therapy for humans, that they could kind of translate this through whether it's, being able to provide different variations of the same p53 protein to humans to help suppress it, to help reduce cancer in humans, and or understanding this pathway a little bit better, so when you have cancer and it's being suppressed by the MDM2, that you could kind of turn p53 back on. So, I mean, at a minimum, nature is awesome, and we get to learn a little bit more about this mechanism of how elephants got to this point. How could we now translate this to, improving human clinical outcomes?
Well, there you go.
So, like always, more research needs to be done.
Oh, and we have to spend more time with elephants.
Elephants are great.
You know who else? Besides the, as they say, the elephant in the room, you can't ignore the 500-pound bear in the room.
I'll let you take this one away, Mark.
Was it the 500-pound gorilla? But we're talking bears today. They hibernate. And while they hibernate, researchers go and take some serum from them. And they have discovered that if you take the serum from a hibernating black bear and get it into the system of a human, among other things, it will increase muscle mass.
So this is important because, I mean, a bear, they consume a lot of nutrients in a short period of time and then hibernate and don't really move for a long period of time, and yet they don't succumb to any sort of diabetes while they're gorging on food, and don't have nearly as much muscle waste from being completely sedentary, whereas humans, short periods of time of being either sedentary or just not using muscle, and there's muscle wasting. I mean, I could tell you, I had a knee surgery, and within 1 week of being immobilized, my leg was a fraction of the size it was beforehand. We waste away pretty quickly.
Can I be science geek here? Bears don't hibernate. We call it hibernating, but it's actually a deep sleep. Certain insects hibernate. They actually shut down metabolic function. But the bear, it's normal for it to eat that way. The same thing, you never hear anyone go, that lion eats nothing but red meat. It's going to get a cholesterol problem. That is the diet it is adapted to. It's only when you go too far out of what you're supposed to do. There's not any one thing that for all creatures is good or bad.
So we didn't evolve to eat boxes of Oreos every day?
Some of us pizza, Coca-Cola, and chocolate, but so for the bear eating that way is normal. The thing is that serum, if taken from the bear's blood in the hibernating time, will grow muscle mass. If taken during the springtime, it will not. So they are producing a factor to keep them from wasting away. This could be really important for, I don't know, when Mr. Musk wants to send us to Mars in zero gravity for quite a while. If you don't want your muscles, and I assume it might work for bones too to waste away, though they didn't mention bones. It also might. They did. It might be very important for certain degenerative conditions right here on Earth.
Oh, yeah. Even someone that maybe went into a coma for a short period of time, or induced in coma, or just post-surgery.
It's Yogi's smarter than the average bear, but we have to catch up to the average bear.
Well, hopefully, in the near future, we'll have such serum.
Courage is like a muscle. We strengthen it by use. Ruth Gordo. More is lost by indecision than wrong decision. Marcus Tullius Cicero. You can do anything you put your mind to.
So, do you want to move on to the one last thing in the room?
The mistletoe?
The mistletoe's in the room.
The mistletoes.
Mistletoes. which is not the condition when a missile hits your toe. Mistletoe is the seeds or something from it, they stick to birds so that they can be taken, something like that, and they found this is a wonderful adhesive.
So it's actually in the berries of mistletoe. The seeds are surrounded by a mucus-like substance known as vicin. It's made up of cellulose nanofibers. It is very strong. It's very sticky.
And I was thinking at the beginning that this means that if you kiss someone under the mistletoe, it'll stick. But this adhesive has a weakness. It falls apart in moisture.
Yes. So they formed into thin filaments, and when allowed to dry, they bond together very strongly. So as you mentioned, it falls apart in moisture. But more specifically, it sticks very well to synthetic materials, metal, plastic, glass, along with biological tissue. So the idea is to create
Dry biological tissues.
But to use it, I guess, as it was a wound healing, right? Not
Yeah, they were definitely talking about...
By exposed to water vapor, it causes to swell and release hold to another.
But then you'd have to think a wound is going to get wet. If you have like an open cut and you're going to seal it with this glue, they're going to have to get over that moisture problem.
Yes, I guess if you seal it, it's still sticky while moist. So it has some adhesive properties, but then as it continues to dry, along with the clotting in the area.
Now, if you used it as, let's say, on a Band-Aid, where it sticks to the dry skin, and then when it's time to remove the Band-Aid, it's real easy. You just wet it.
And so ends another wonderful, riveting podcast. So, quick summary. We always like to promote the good and improvement, self-improvement to some extent. Going back to our quote, focus on your goals, not your obstacles. Look, things are going to happen in life. Pick yourself back up. Focus on what your end game is. And then what we learned today from nature's cool.
And if I'm going to keep focus on the end game, I think somewhere in this podcast, I should mention our sponsor, KINETIQ, and how it helps you keep focus. Yeah.
And it helps you stay calm. And hopefully, by the time I have to worry about cancer, that we will have some of this amazing technology, what we learned from elephants, brought to the real world. Or if I get to go deep space with Elon Musk and his crew, that I will, maintain my muscle mass by having some black bear serum. I don't know. But it's an exciting future ahead of us.
I want to learn to hibernate, quote, sleep like the bears, and I can just lose my weight and wake up slimmer.
Winter can be boring. It's a good way to take some black bear serum and just lounge around the apartment for a couple months.
Get me a nice man cave to sleep in, and It's about that time, everybody, so have a great interval until we talk to you again, and I am signing off.
Until next time, I'm Mike Shalabudis. We have Dr. Mark Hertzberg, and thank you for coming and hanging out with us today at the KINETIQ Life Podcast.
We're sponsored by KINETIQ Renew. KINETIQ Renew is a 4-ounce shot of all natural ingredients that deliver some amazing benefits, like improved mental clarity, long and short-term focus, and improved memory and cognition. Plus, KINETIQ Renew improves mood with the added benefits of anti-stress and anti-anxiety. Here's what people are saying.
I drink a bottle of KINETIQ Renew, and I'm in a better mood. It's like waking up on the right side of the bed. It's great.
My mental focus is clearly better.
I do notice that I have better clarity. Definitely improves my mood for sure. It reduces my stress.
Visit KINETIQLife.com today. KINETIQ Life.com and try it. Use promo code POD1 for 30% off. That's POD and the number 1, POD1, for a limited time 30% discount. Log on, give it a try. You're going to like it. Thank you for listening to the KINETIQ Life Podcast. Catch a new show every other Thursday. You'll find us on Apple and Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify and everywhere else you can listen to a podcast. And remember, be safe, have fun, and go for your dreams. This podcast is for entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. All comments, jokes, views, and ideas expressed are those of the hosts or guests and do not represent any company or organizations with whom they may be affiliated. Always make sure to consult your own physician before starting any new diet, supplement, or exercise routine. There's one more thing. If you're working on something that you really care about, you don't have to be pushed. The vision pulls you. Steve Jobs.